Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Had Scarab and Becomes Blue Beetle movie. Before we start, please go support President Thanos for writing that awesome fanfic. One bright and sunny day the city was bustling. People were going to and from work, school, or the store, and cars lined the streets. Heroes were seen running and leaping over rooftops, ensuring the safety of the people. But in one alleyway, one boy wasn't having such a good day. A green-haired teenager could be seen huddled up next to a box, an undersized and tattered blanket only half covering him. The only company he had was his Quirk, Scarab, and that was enough. Then he heard a shout, meaning the store owner had found him and he need to move again. But before he could, another voice was heard. The boy looked up to see a man with goggles and a scarf talking to the owner. Then he walked over to the boy, removing his goggles to show his tired eyes. "Come on, kid, let's get you out of here." That one sentence was enough to fill him with hope, a feeling he would soon share with the world. Lefe will go to Kyokajiru. Chapter 1. Izuku Midoriya, someone you would call an ordinary kid. He didn't have muscles making his shirt nearly burst, nor was he a stick. He was right in the middle. He was plain by nearly everyone's standards. He hadn't led the best life, far from it. He had once lived with his mother in an apartment. That too was plain. He even had a quirk, though this was the only thing about him no one would ever agree was plain. His scarab was wonderful. It was a bright blue and its metallic surface shone in the sunlight. It was even sentient, quickly becoming his best friend. Now he was homeless. His mother had been killed by villains who had heard of his quirk and wanted it for themselves, believing that they could take the scarab from his back and use it themselves. Though that was a very long time ago. Izuku was sat in an alleyway just behind a restaurant. "Scarab, Izuku. You must eat, your body fat is dangerously low." Izuku, "Well, when I find something I'll eat it." "Thanks, Scarab." Scarab, "Well, perhaps if you went inside and took some FO. Izuku, "No. I will not steal. I appreciate the thought, but I won't." Scarab, "But Izuku, you need to yay." Then a door near them slammed open, and a large man in an apron walked outside. "Izuku, please don't see me." Scarab, "I apologize. Invisibility isn't one of my abilities." The man started to look around, seemingly already knowing what he was looking for. It wasn't until he stopped and Izuku followed his gaze that he understood. His position in the alley was being monitored by an outdoor security camera. The man's gaze then followed that of the cameras down to Izuku. Seeing the dirty green-haired boy made him angry. How dare someone like him scare away customers? Owner yelling, "You boy, get out of here, scram, do it before I put you in my next soup." Izuku started scrambling to get away, but before he could, something was wrapped around him. Not having the energy to fight, he just turned to see where it came from, the roof. On the roof was a man. No, not just a man, a hero. "Really? My first day's shift in a month and I have to deal with this?" He jumped down and landed in front of Izuku. "Stay here, I'll deal with you in a minute." He released Izuku, who did as he was told. The man then walked over to the owner. "Now you? I should arrest you right now." Owner yelling, "What? Why?" The man pinched his nose and sighed. "Threatening a homeless person with death should be enough. But is that a knife I see? Intent to harm and attempted murder could be a couple charges put on you." Owner yelling, "What? He was the one in space, I have every right to do this." The man shook his head. "Look, you may own this restaurant, but you don't own any of this alley where he was. Now I suggest you go back inside and wait for the police." The owner nodded in both anger and fear before going back in. The hero walked back over to Izuku while mumbling something about irrationality. After stopping in front of Izuku, he could finally see the hero more clearly. The man was wearing a scarf, which is what was used to restrain him, and yellow shutter goggles which he removed to reveal tired eyes. "Izuku, I'm sorry. I just wanted a place to sleep. Look, kid, let's get you out of here, okay?" Izuku looked at him confused. Izuku, "What? Why?" "You heard me. Let's go. I want to hear why you're out here alone." He grabbed Izuku's wrist and dragged him from the alley. Izuku. But I'm not alone, I've got Scarab, besides I don't even know your name. This made the hero pause. Scarab? You wouldn't just so happen to be related to the Midoriyas, would you? Izuku nodded. Izuku. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Who are you? The man mumbled something else, but this time Scarab was able to make Izuku hear it using nanotech to enhance his hearing. Mumbling. Of course it's her son. Normal. Come on, I can tell you once we're alone. He continued to pull Izuku around the city, stopping to get some food on the way. An hour later and they finally stopped in front of an apartment building. Let's go. This time Izuku followed the man. They went up to the 5th floor before finally entering an apartment. Izuku noted the orange cat laying on the couch, but before he could take in anything else, he was pulled over to a table. The man sat across from him. Izuku. What's going on? You need to know something, Izuku. This made Izuku weirded out. He didn't know the man at all, but he was already using his first name. What was going on? My name is Shota Aizawa. My hero name is Eraserhead. And Inko Midoriya was my sister. Izuku, what? Scarab, the... Both buck? Shota. By your reaction, I can already guess you realized me and her show no resemblance. That's because she was adopted. Her original mother gave her to my family, saying that she had an enemy that would use her against her or something. That's all I heard. You wouldn't remember me as I couldn't visit due to hero work. I'm sorry I couldn't find you. Izuku was shocked, but as he looked around, seeing old family pictures of the man's family with his mother in each of them, he could tell he was telling the truth. He started crying. The man, or Uncle Shota, ran around the table. Shota, are you okay? Izuku nodded and looked up with a smile, tears still flowing down his face. Izuku, I'm just so happy. I finally have more family than just Scarab. Shota wasn't expecting it, but Izuku lunged at him with a hug. The boy's heart had been filled with hope. Now he would strive to share that hope with the world. Chapter 2. 2 months had passed since Shota had taken Izuku in, and they were the best months Izuku had since his mother's death. Shota had declared Izuku as found in the police records, as he publicly went missing after the attack. Shota had already started tutoring Izuku in what he had missed, and even hired an actual tutor for when he couldn't help. Now was Izuku's first day of his last, and as well as first year of middle school. He stepped through the school doors and walked over to the main office, messenger bag over his shoulder, as Scarab left little room for an ordinary backpack. Once he entered, the greeter looked up and smiled. Izuku noticed her staff ID read Ms. Bortiski. Ms. Bortiski. Hello, how may I help you? Izuku. I'm Izuku Midoriya, I'm new. She looked back to her computer and typed something on her keyboard before leaning in to read. After a second she leaned back and turned back to him. Ms. Bortiski. Yep, here it says your first period is with Mr. Everstone. Just then the door burst open and a girl Izuku's age rushed in. I'm not late, am I? The woman shook her head. Ms. Bortiski. Not today, Mississippi Hagakure. Though you're close. And I'm glad you popped in. Toru. What do you need? Ms. Bortiski motioned towards Izuku. Ms. Bortiski. This is Izuku Midoriya, he's new. You two have first and second periods together, so I'd like you to show him around. You'll be excused for being late for all but those two, okay? Toru nodded quickly and Ms. Bortiski handed Izuku his schedule, which she had just printed. After that Toru grabbed his hand and left the office in a hurry. Toru. We're gonna be late. Izuku simply stayed quiet as she dragged him through the hallways. After a minute they reached a door, she opened it, and practically threw him inside as the bell rang. Toru. We're not late. Mr. Everyone, an American man in his late 40s who was teaching English in Japan, simply chuckled and shook his head. Mr. Everyone. Not today. Just try not to kill the new kid, okay? Izuku had caught himself on a desk and stood up. He looked back at the teacher who simply nodded, telling him to introduce himself. Toru walked over to her seat and sat down. Izuku. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'll be with you all for the rest of the year. Mr. Everett1. Are you okay with questions? Izuku nodded and immediately a few hands rose, one being Toru, who was the first he called on. Izuku. Hagakure, right? She nodded. Toru. You're new, right? Did something happen at your last school? Izuku grew an uncomfortable smile on his face. Izuku. That's actually a bit too personal. Toru. Oh, sorry. Izuku. It's fine. He then called on the next person and answered their question. Izuku was sitting on the roof of the school, eating a packed lunch that he was surprised Shota had made, given he didn't think the man could cook. While he was eating, he was talking to Scarab out loud. Izuku. So what do you think of the school? Scarab. It is all right. Most of the students seem to be indifferent with your sudden appearance. Izuku. Most? Scarab. That Hagakure girl seems to be curious. Perhaps she wants to be friends. This made Izuku scoff. Izuku. Friends? Who would want to be friends with a kid who still smells like garbage? Scarab. The stench is 93.7%. Toru. I do. Izuku jumped at her sudden appearance from around the corner. She then walked over and sat next to him. Toru. Who were you talking to? Izuku. My Quirk. She grew a confused look on her face. Izuku. It's complicated. The simple version is there's a sentient computer fused with my back in the shape of a Scarab beetle. Toru. Cool. Izuku. Yeah. I guess. He then pulled out a notebook and pen and looked over a nearby railing. When she followed his gaze, she saw students secretly using their quirks. She then heard him writing. When she looked at him, he was focused on the students and writing something down. Toru. Are you gonna report them or something? This seemed to break him out of his focus, and he looked at her. Izuku. No, I just like writing about quirks. Helps me know how to fight against them once I become a hero. Toru. You want to be a hero too? Izuku smiled and nodded. Toru. Sweet, maybe we can go to UA together. Izuku. Yeah, maybe. Oh, can I write an entry on your quirk? Toru. Why? Izuku. So maybe once we get in I can help you train, it'll be easier with someone else who knows your quirk like you do. She thought about it for a second before nodding. The rest of their lunch period was spent with them talking. Izuku was happy that he finally had a friend. Chapter 3. Izuku woke up one day, just a couple weeks after his first day of school. He and Toru had become fast friends, and had also been practically inseparable. But now it was the weekend, so either of them had school. He sat up and looked to the table next to his bed. On it were pictures of him and his mom that she sent Shota, who then printed them for him. Izuku. I wish I could have known her. Uncle Shota did say she was adopted. I wonder who my grandma was. Scarab. We may never know. Izuku sighed and nodded before he heard something, or rather someone, talking in the living room. So, Aizawa. I heard you've taken in a child. May we see him? Shota. Sure. Just give me a second, sir. After a few seconds, the door to his room opened to reveal his uncle standing there. Shota. Kid, get dressed. My coworkers want to meet you. Izuku. Why? The man shrugged and closed the door, walking back to the guests. Izuku then got out of bed and got dressed. Then he walked out to the living room to see 4 people, 2 of which he recognized. Mizu, principal of UA, All Might, the #1 hero, and 2 others. One was a man with long blonde hair, sunglasses, and a mustache, and the other was a woman with blue eyes and dark purple hair. Izuku. You, Hi. Suddenly the woman walked over and started messing with his face. Look at this cutie, those freckles are just perfect, and your eyes are such a beautiful shade of green. She then stopped, backed up, and cleared her throat. Sorry. I'm Namiri Kayama, okay? You might know me as Midnight. She then motioned to the other man. Kayama. This here is Hisashi Yamada, also known as President Mike. Mike. I can introduce myself, Kayama. Kayama. Yeah, but if you did, you would have gotten loud. Then the small rodent known as Nizu walked over and Izuku bent down to greet him. Izuku. Hi, Mr. Nizu. Nizu chuckled. Nizu. You know me already? Shota. He finds your papers on quirks and quirk discrimination very interesting. The rodent chuckled once more as he noticed Izuku's face go red. Izuku, Uncle Shota. This got a laugh out of everyone minus Shota. The booming laugh of All Might was heard, then his coughing. Suddenly a large amount of steam filled the room. Once it cleared, All Might was now a skeleton of a man. Izuku. What happened? All Might. Cough, don't be alarmed. It's simply a time limit that I just met. Izuku. Time limit? But you're All Might. All Might. Yes, and I'm also in my 50s. Age does this to people. Cough. Izuku didn't see the small amount of blood the man wiped from his mouth. He then walked over to the boy and stuck his hand out. All Might. Nice to meet you, Yum? Izuku. Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you too. He then shook the man's hand. He felt something wet. When he looked at it, he saw blood on All Might's hand. Scarab, familial DNA detected. Scanning. Grandmother, Nana Shimura. Preserved consciousness detected. Copying, downloading, running. Have a good life, Izuku. Nana, what the hell? Izuku then screamed and fell in surprise both from the blood and the new voice in his head. Shota then ran over to Izuku and crouched down next to him. Izuku then looked at All Might. Izuku. Why do you have my grandma's DNA? All Might looked confused. All Might. What? Izuku. Scarab, my quirk. It said you had familial DNA, my grandma's. It said her name was Nana Shimura. Why do you have her DNA? Why is there blood on your hand? Nana, is that Toshi? Izuku yelling. Why is she in my head? Suddenly, everything went black for the boy. When he awoke, he was in a dark place. He could feel the ground, but he couldn't see it as it was the same color as everything else. Nana. So you're my grandson, eh? Izuku turned to face the voice to see a woman with black hair and a ponytail, a black sleeveless bodysuit, a red waistcloth, and a white cape. Izuku. Hey, are you in Nana? She nodded. Izuku. Then I guess I am. What happened? Nana. From what I could gather, your quirk sensed me within Toshi and copied me. How it did it I have no clue. Izuku then walked over to her. Izuku. Toshi, isn't that what you called All Might? Nana. All Might? That's his hero name? Ha damn, now I owe Torino dinner. Izuku. What do you want me to call you? She looked at him confused. Nana. What do you mean? Izuku. Well, you don't really know me, so I thought you might and not like me calling you grandma. She smiled and sat down, patting a spot next to her, where he then sat too. Nana. Look, Izuku. You're partially right, I don't know you all that well. But what I do know is that while I never got to raise my own children, I damn well want to watch you grow up. You're still my family, so please do call me grandma, you got that? She looked at him and noticed the tears flowing down his face. Before she could ask him what was wrong, he hugged her. Izuku. Thank you, you have no idea how much this means to me. She chuckled and rubbed his head. Nana. Actually, I do. I can sense how you feel considering I'm technically your quirk now. Izuku then sat back up and rubbed his eyes. Izuku. Speaking of which, where are we? Nana. Your subconscious. That's the best way to describe it. I'll wake you up now. Izuku. Okay. Love you. Nana smiled. Nana. We can still talk, but sure. Love you too. Then it went dark again. Izuku was happy. He finally met another part of his family. Chapter 4. Nearly a year had passed since Izuku started school, and he already decided he didn't like it. One morning his alarm went off and he dismissed it. He then rolled over and groaned. Izuku. PH. I don't want to go. Nana, you have to. Izuku. What could one day do? Nana, fair point. Izuku. Too bad you can't make me invisible. Nana, what do you mean, Izuku? I can. Izuku was now confused. Izuku. What? But Scarab said it couldn't. Nana, from what it left behind, I think it just wanted you to be found. Kinda happy it did since I can actually talk to you now, my adorable little grandson. Izuku. I see. Well, do it then. Nana, what's the magic word? Izuku sighed. Izuku. Please, Grandma? Instead of words, she just activated the Scarab's nanotech, having it thinly cover him, and activated the cloak. The process finished just in time for Shota to enter the room. Shota. Where is he? He started to look around until his eyes landed on the mysterious floating blanket which Izuku had forgotten to push off. Shota then activated his quirk, making the nanotech deactivate and re-enter the Scarab. Izuku. Hi. Shota pinched the bridge of his nose. Shota. Izuku, mind telling me why were you cloaked? Nana, you're not getting out of this, so just tell him. Izuku. I wanted to skip school today. Sorry, Uncle Sho. At this, a small smirk appeared on Shota's face, as if he was waiting for this moment. Shota. Well then, if you're so determined to do this that you'd use your quirk, how about something else? Izuku, now interested, sat up. Izuku. Like what? Shota. Training. The entrance exams are in a year, so why don't we start your training? Izuku, now fully excited, jumped out of his bed. Izuku, yes please. Shota's smirk widened into his signature grin. Shota. Well, if you're so excited, I'll make it hell for you. From this day on, every weekend will be used for training. The only breaks you will get are for eating. Izuku grew a scared look on his face. Izuku. What will this tea training be? Shota. You'll see. Get dressed, we're going to UA. Izuku was excited again as Shota left the room. Shota opened a door and stepped inside. Izuku was right behind him. The room they just entered looked to be a training room of sorts. Izuku then noticed the different types of targets. There were punching bags, ballistic dummies, and even robots. Izuku had also noticed the weird gazes he got from the students, though he figured that was just from him not wearing a uniform. Shota then stopped in front of a small closet. Shota. Wait just a second. Izuku stopped as Shota started digging through the closet, eventually pulling out two objects. He then took the staff-looking weapon and split it in two. Shota. Weapons training, especially close-quarters weapons. The Scarab may be capable of creating weapons on the fly, but you have no real experience. Training without the Scarab's nanotech active will help you in the long run. Besides, you can't fly forever. He put the sword to the side and held the batons in each hand. Shota. These are Eskrima sticks. They also have shock technology at the ends. They can also be put together at the non-shock ends to form a staff. He handed them to Izuku. Shota. Go and try hitting one of the dummies. Izuku. Okay. Izuku walked over to one of the dummies and started to hit it. Suddenly Nana spoke up. Nana, Izuku, can I see those? Izuku. Sure. He noticed thin lines of nanotech run down his arms and to the sticks. Once it reached them, it covered them and absorbed them into the nanotech. Nana, there we go. Now you don't have to worry about losing them. Izuku. Thank you. Nana, no problem, Izuku. I'm happy to help. Izuku then kept hitting the dummy until Shota came over. Shota. You like them? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Yeah, I do. Shota. Good, cause there's no way I'm letting you use that sword until you're a second year. Now let me show you how to use them. Give them here. Izuku. That's gonna be a problem. Shota paused. Shota. Why? The sticks then disappeared, along with the nanotech lines, back into the Scarab. Shota ran his hand down his face. Shota. Problem child. Izuku was wandering the halls of UA. Shota had been searching for spare sticks for a while and had sent him out while he searched. Izuku spied a familiar living skeleton man. Nana Izuku, switch with me. Izuku. Why? Nana, please, I want to mess with Toshi. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Alright, lead the way, Grandma. He felt himself get pulled into his mind as he and Nana swapped out, a skill they and learned one day as Izuku failed to cook. Nana, now in control of their shared body, walked forward quickly over to the man. She also used some of the nanotech to create a voice changer within Izuku's throat to match her own voice. Nana. Long time no see, Toshi. All Might whipped his head around to try and find where his master's voice was coming from, though he couldn't see anyone. Nana had activated the cloaking feature. All Might. Master? Nana. That's right, Toshi, it's me. She then uncloaked as All Might looked away, causing him to almost jump out of the chair he was in when he looked back. All Might. Oh, young Midoriya, it's just you. I must have been hearing things. Nana. No, I don't think you were. This time All Might really did jump out of his chair. All Might. Master? Nana chuckled. Nana. The one and only. Actually, that's a lie. She poked his forehead. Nana. There's one in there too, laying dormant. Waiting for the next wielder to be chosen before awakening. All Might. And how would you know? Nana. Because that's the only reason I'm here. Izuku's quirk copied my consciousness from within you. Oh, and one more thing before I switch back. All Might. What is it? Nana. Month 4 into your training. You weren't as slick as you thought you were, Toshi. Bye. She and Izuku then swapped places again. Izuku waved bye to All Might before strolling back the way he came, towards the training room, leaving an extremely bewildered and terrified All Might. Chapter 5. Izuku and Toru walked up to the gates of their future school, excitement gleaming in their eyes and forcing their mouths into smiles. Why wouldn't they be excited? Today was the UA entrance exams after all. They looked at each other and nodded before sprinting past the other examinees, who were walking as they weren't late. As they walked inside, a woman at a desk gave them cards. When they looked at them, they noticed their names, seat numbers, and exam grounds were on the cards. As they found their seats, Izuku noticed something. Izuku. Ah man. We have different exam areas. Toru then looked at both cards. Toru. What? Oh come on, I was hoping we could try that combo move. Izuku. Me too. Guess it'll have to wait until hero training. Nana. Heads up, Izuku. Looks like it's starting. Izuku. Hagakure, it's starting. The two then faced forward to see a man with tall blonde hair, sunglasses, and a speaker around his neck at the podium. Izuku. It's Mike. Present Mike. Hello, welcome to the UA entrance exams, everyone, which are to be hosted by yours truly, your favorite radio host, Present Mike. Can I get a hell yeah? Izuku yelling hell yeah. Present Mike then shot finger guns at him. Present Mike. At least one of you has some energy now, let's begin. The man on stage then went on to talk about the exam, though Izuku had realized all of the information was in the pamphlet that was in everyone's seats. Izuku had also begun to mutter, mostly over possible outcomes of the exam. Suddenly a voice was heard. And you in the unkempt hair, your muttering is distracting. If you insist on being here, I suggest you start taking this seriously. Toru. Excuse me, but him muttering about this exam shows how dedicated he is, and I could barely hear him, which means you had to try to pick him out. You're the one who's not taking this seriously. Mike. Thank you, Glasses Kid and Shota's nephew's friend. Now yes, I was getting to. The fourth robot is worth 0 points, nothing, nada, zilch. It's an obstacle now. Would you all kindly make your ways your designated areas? Izuku, Toru, and every other examinee in the large auditorium stood up and walked towards the exit. They eventually met a crossroads that led in 3 different directions. Before they separated, Izuku spoke up. Izuku. Thanks for that, Hagakure. She patted his back and started walking away. Toru. What are friends for? See ya later, Midoriya. Izuku. See you, Hagakure. They waved as they went their separate ways. Izuku and many others eventually made their way to a large, walled-off, training ground. Izuku noticed the guy with glasses bothering a girl with purple hair and headphone jacks on her ears about trying to talk to other examinees. He walked up and placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. Izuku. Hey man. Maybe you should worry about yourself rather than others. You're sacrificing your own prep time to stop other people from socializing. Talking is probably a way to keep her nerves down. But it's distracting to the others. Izuku. And if they have a problem with it, they can tell her to stop. This is an entrance exam for a hero school, we can all handle ourselves. The boy, shocked at Izuku's sound logic, walked away without another word. Then the girl spoke up. Thanks, dude. I'm Kyokajiru. She stuck out her hand and Izuku shook it. Izuku Midoriya, no problem. I was the one he called out earlier too. I'm grateful my friend stood up for me. Jiru. What happened to we can handle ourselves? Izuku chuckled. Izuku. A tiny bluff to get him out of your hair. She laughed, then another voice was heard. Present Mike. Alright everyone, the exam will start in just a few seconds. 3. Izuku noticed the gate to the fake city start to open. Nana sent nanotech to his feet to create thrusters. Nana, you sure you don't want the full suit? Izuku, I'm saving that for real training. He then rocketed off towards the gates. Random guy yelling. He's cheating. Present Mike. And no, he's not. There's no countdown in a Rio battle. Go Geo go. Izuku called on Nana, who then used the tech to bring out the Eskrima sticks. Izuku spied a group of robots and changed course to head towards it. Once he was close, he wound back his arm and then swung at the first robot, his velocity and force of the swing sending it across the street broken and deactivated. He then landed and attached the sticks at the non-shock ends, creating the staff. Izuku swung the staff at another robot, crushing its head, then he pulled the staff backwards, making the other end hit a robot in the chest and frying its circuits with the shock. He then lifted the staff up and slammed its bottom end into the ground, releasing a large amount of electricity and frying nearby robots that came as backup. Izuku. Thank you for that upgrade, Grandma. Nana, you're welcome. Now keep going. The staff retracted back into the Scarab and Izuku took off in a random direction to keep looking for more robots. Izuku was sitting in the apartment 2 weeks later, the concussion from a fall piece of debris finally fading. He had gotten hit once the staff had unleashed the zero-pointer, and Nana had basically forced him to retreat before he got hurt anymore. Now, however, he was viewing a holographic video from Yue. Nizu. Izuku Midoriya, I am proud to tell you this. Welcome to your Hero Academia. Chapter 6. Izuku and Toru were once again in front of the Yue gates. This time, however, they were there as full-on students, uniforms and all. Izuku. We're finally here. I can't wait. Toru. Me too, let's go. She grabbed Izuku's arm and they both began running into the building. Izuku noticed that in her excitement, she accidentally pulled some light to her legs, making herself faster. They reached the classroom in no time. Once they reached it, Hagakure threw open the door and walked inside with Izuku close behind her. Izuku noticed the boy with the glasses and Jiru were both inside along with a few others. Upon seeing the green-haired boy, he stood and walked over, arms kept at perfect 90 degrees angles. You, boy with the green hair, back during the entrance exams you took a large piece of debris to the head, are you okay? Izuku. Why yeah? It was just a concussion, my Quirk helped me make a full recovery. I'm Izuku Midoriya, who are you? Izuku stuck his hand out, which his spectacled peer shook. My name is Tenya Ida. That is odd, I thought your Quirk had to do with that blue substance on your body. Izuku. It's nanotech my body naturally produces, it's pretty complicated. Ida. I don't doubt it. Natural nanotechnology, that is interesting. Anyhow, I'll leave you be for now, I hope we can get along despite our previous interactions. His eyes then darted to the side. Ida. Hey, stop using that desk as a chair. He then walked past Izuku and over to a boy with a bird head. Izuku then looked over at Toru, intending to catch up to her and start a conversation, but he noticed she was busy talking to a girl with pink hair and skin. He then sat down at the closest desk and put his head down to wait for the others and whoever their teacher was. After a couple minutes, he felt a tap on his shoulder. When he lifted his head, he noticed it was Toru. Izuku. Hagakure? I thought you were talking to that other girl. She smiled. Toru. I was, but then I noticed you sitting all on your lonesome and decided I should stick with you for now. I can always make new friends another day after all. Izuku smiled back and sat up. Izuku. Thank you truly. She then grabbed a chair from a nearby desk and slid it over to sit at the desk he was at. Toru. So, how's life with your grandma in your head? Izuku. It's good. I like having her here. She's the last piece of biological family I have left, so I'm happy I have her, even if she's only in my head. Toru. Well, how about this? Once we graduate and become full-on pros, we can hunt down and arrest the bastards who took your mom from you, okay? Izuku shook his head. Izuku. They're probably already dead. They were being paid. Once they came back empty-handed, I have a feeling they were promptly eliminated. Toru shrugged. Toru. Then we take down whoever paid them. Izuku. Sure. I'll even have Grandma get a few swings in too. Nana, damn right. They'll pay for killing Inko and hurting you, Izuku. Izuku smiled wide. Then the door opened and a man in a yellow sleeping bag slinked inside, though Izuku and Toru already knew who it was. They looked at each other and nodded. Toru manipulated the light in the room bend around her, making herself invisible, and Nana activated the cloaking mode of the Scarab. Knowing Shota hadn't seen them yet, they decided to play a prank on him. The tired man slithered out of his sleeping bag and looked up, ready to complain about the class speed in shutting up, when he noticed the two students he knew should be there weren't. Shota. Izuku, Hagakure. Come out or I'm telling lunch rush. Not to feed you. The room remained quiet. Shota mumbling. Problem children. He activated his quirk and began scanning the room. Nothing. He looked behind himself. Nothing. Now confused, he deactivated his quirk. Then he realized something and stepped out of the way just in time to avoid the two who decided to tackle him from the ceiling. Once they hit the ground, they both became visible. Shota. You too. Desks. Now. He flared his quirk for added intimidation, which got them both moving. Yes, sir. They quickly went back to their desks. Shota. Good, now that everyone is here, we can begin. He pulled two boxes out from behind the front podium and placed them on two desks at the front. Shota. These contain your P uniforms, put them on and meet me outside. He then left the classroom and the students did as they were told. Their first day had started. Now can they survive Shota's famous first-year purge? Chapter 7. The class got up from their seats and grabbed their P uniforms as Shota walked out of the room. It took a couple minutes to find the locker rooms after that, but the class managed. While inside, a boy with blonde hair with a black streak in it began to talk to Izuku. So, how do you know the teacher? Izuku. He's my uncle. The locker room then went silent, void of even background chatter. Izuku. What? He's your uncle, dude. That means you'll be able to give us test answers. He'll probably even go easy on you. Izuku shook his head. Izuku. No. That's not how Uncle Shota works. If anything, he'll spar with me personally. Just make sure I get the training drilled into my head. Not to mention the punishment training he'll give me if I did leak test answers. The green-haired boy visibly shivered. Ah, man. Oh well, nothing to be upset over. The name's Denki Kaminari. The boy stuck out his hand, which Izuku shook. Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. Kaminari. Nice to meet ya. Izuku smiled. Izuku. Likewise. They resumed changing and left the locker room. So, how do you know Mr. Aizawa? Toru. He's my friend's uncle. Toru then turned to face the pink-skinned girl she had been talking to earlier. You mean that green-haired boy you ditched me for? Toru giggled lightly and nodded. Toru. That's him. Midoriya and I went to the same school. Trust me, he's a great friend to have. How long have you known him? Toru. He transferred schools at the beginning of our last year, so basically a year. What happened at his last one? Toru then went quiet. She had been told of his past, though she never thought about it unless it was specifically brought up by him in conversation. Toru. It's not my tale to tell. I'm Toru Hagakure, by the way. Ah, you're no fun, oh well. Mina Ashido at your service. They finished changing and left the locker room. Shota was standing outside, nearly falling asleep while doing so when he could hear the faintest sound of excited teenagers. Waking himself up, he merely had to wait a few seconds before the crowd of 20 students emerged from the doors. They stopped just a few feet away from him. Shota. While you all made it on time, you were still too slow for my liking. Get faster. Just then a brown-haired girl raised her hand. Shota. Yes, Uraraka? Uraraka. Sir, why are we out here? We'll miss orientation. Shota. Let me make this clear. We here at UA do not pump out the best pros because we follow the norm. Us teachers are allowed to go as off-curriculum as we deem necessary. And the reason you are out here is because we're going to be doing some fitness tests. Bakugo. The spiky blonde boy looked up. Bakugo. Yeah? Shota. You got the most on the entrance exams, come here. The boy walked over as Shota pulled out a softball. Shota. What was your through distance in middle school? Bakugo. Around 67 meters, why? Shota. I want you to do it again, this time using your quirk. The boy smirked as he took the ball. Shota. You can do anything you want as long as you stay inside the circle. The class watched as the boy wound his arm back, threw it forward, and set off a large explosion as he let go of the ball, sending it flying. Bakugo, yelling, die. After a few seconds, Shota pulled up a tablet showing a distance of 705.2 meters. Shota. That is what you'll be doing today. Ashido. We get use our quirks, this is going to be so foo. Suddenly two things wrapped around the pink girl's mouth, a glowing yellow rope, and a blue metallic clamp. She turned to see Toru and Izuku were the ones responsible. They both shook their heads, telling her to not finish her sentence. Shota. Let her go, you too. They did as they were told. Shota. Now. What were you saying, Ashido? Ashido glanced between him and the two students who were still shaking their heads. Ashido. That us getting to use our quirks is going to be so foo. They shook their heads harder. Ashido. Bucking lame? Shota smirked. Shota. Alright. Well, to make it exciting, let's make it a competition. Whoever comes in last gets expelled. Uraraka. But sir, that's not fair. The man's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas. Shota. Fair? Izuku looked at the projection to see he came second while Toru came eighth. He looked to the bottom to find someone named Rikido Sato came in last. Shota. Oh, and the expulsion thing, it was just a rational deception to get you all to try your best. You can all head inside now. There are sheets for you to pick up on my desk. Feel free to hang out until lunch. Izuku and Toru looked at each other, smiled, and nodded. They had survived the hardest part of their first day. Now they were officially on the path to becoming heroes. Chapter 8. Class 1A was once again in class, only today was different. Instead of first day jitters or worries of expulsion, only excitement filled the room. Today was the day of their first practical heroics lesson. As they waited, a few began to theorize who their heroics teacher could be. Kirishima. I hope we get someone like Snipe. Uraraka. Ectoplasm would be cool. Zero. But he already teaches us math. Uraraka. Yeah, but it would still be cool. Oh, maybe it's that rumored new staff member. Izuku was sitting idly in his desk. Because of Nana and knowledge he already had, he didn't have to guess. It's not like Niza would hire a weekend All Might just to have him around. Nana had also allowed him to plug into one of the school's data connections, letting him access the systems. Now he was laying his head down on his desk. Someone tapped his shoulder. When he looked over, he saw Toru. Toru. So when is he coming? Izuku shrugged. Izuku. Not like we can make him go faster. He'll probably be a few more minutes. As if the universe was just trying to prove him wrong, the door was slammed open and All Might entered in an odd pose. All Might. I am here, coming through the door like a hero. The class quietly exclaimed their surprise at the number one hero being their teacher. All Might. As you may know, today marks the first practical heroics lesson of your school careers, and to mark it, we are doing something very exciting. He reached into a pocket on his costume and pulled out a card, holding it out from the class to read. All Might. Battle training, but that is not all. He pressed a button and multiple sections of the wall popped out, holding numbered cases. All Might. Created by private support companies using your submitted designs and Quirk registries. No hero is complete without their gear. Grab your case and go change. I will be waiting at ground beta once you are done. With that said, he sped off. All Might waited inside the fake city and watched as the class emerged from the hallway, all in their hero costumes. They approached him. All Might. I must say, you all look great. You already look like you're on the path to become great pros. Young Midoriya, I must ask, where is yours? Everyone turned to look at Izuku, who had merely changed into casual clothes. Izuku. Oh, right. Wait just a second. Grandma, I need the full suit. Nana, coming up. The class watched as blue and black nanomachines covered Izuku's clothes. They wrapped around him and even covered his head. What seemed like a large beetle appeared on his back, with its legs wrapped around his torso and shoulders. He opened his eyes to reveal they were now red and yellow. His voice was slightly different, as if it was slightly put through a mechanizing voice changer. Izuku, this better? He asked to realize everyone was silent, except Toru. She was busy not trying to laugh at their classmates' reactions. All Might. Yes, young Midoriya, this is excellent, but on to the lesson. Everyone slowly turned their heads back to All Might. All Might. Today we will be doing 2-on-2 indoor mock battles. Everyone sees the fights on TV, but statistically heroes run into more villains indoors. Truly smart criminals stay in the shadows. The heroes must capture a fake weapon while the villains must defend it. Also, you cannot go all out here, you aren't facing robots this time after all. The class started to ask many questions, which he wasn't able to answer. After the class calmed down, he pulled out 2 boxes. All Might. Time to draw lots. Izuku ended up on Team A alongside Uraraka. All Might. Alright, now, for the first match. He dug his hands through each box before taking out, looking at, and showing 2 lettered balls. All Might. Team A is the heroes and Team D are the villains. Izuku looked over to Team D, Bakugo and Ida. He couldn't shake the fact that Bakugo seemed familiar somehow. All Might. Both teams will have 5 minutes to prepare. Now, the rest of us will go to the observation room to watch. He and the rest of the class left, after All Might gave the 2 teams their floor plans, capture tape, and comm links first. Bakugo and Ida went inside while Izuku and Uraraka sat down to memorize the floor plans. Uraraka. Midoriya, do you have a plan? Izuku shook his head. Izuku. Without knowing Bakugo's true strength, I can't. If his explosions can knock my suit off, then we'll have to play it safe. If not, I'll take him down. But actually, either way you should go ahead of me. Considering Bakugo is more combat-oriented, he might come to face us while Ida stays back to defend the weapon. Suddenly a buzzer went off and All Might's voice was heard. All Might. The heroes may enter the building. Izuku. Looks like we're up. Uraraka. Right. They walked into the building and everything seemed peaceful until they reached the 3rd floor. Suddenly Bakugo jumped from around the corner and fired an explosion at the hero team. Izuku quickly brought up his arms and Nana made a shield. When the dust settled, the 2 were unharmed, but the shield was damaged greatly. Izuku. So he can destroy them. Uraraka, go get the weapon, I'll hold him off. She nodded and ran past the blonde boy. Bakugo. Are you looking down on me? You think I can't take you 2 at the same time? Izuku, wa. Bakugo, yelling. If you are, then I'll kill you. He lunged at Izuku, who dodged, only to get hit with an explosion-fueled backhand. He was launched down the hall and stood back up. Izuku sticks. The Eskrima sticks appeared in his hands. He and Bakugo charged at each other. Bakugo swung first, but Izuku ducked. The electric end of one stick was planted into Bakugo's stomach, making him falter. He was then hit backwards with the other stick. He hit the wall and made a small crater, filling the air with dust. Through the dust, 2 red flashes could be seen, then laughing was hard as Bakugo walked through the smoke. Bakugo. Looks like I'm all loaded up. Izuku. What do you mean? Bakugo raised one arm and pulled back the lever of his grenade-shaped gauntlet, revealing a pin. Bakugo. These store up my sweat to charge up a monster blast. The more sweat, the bigger the boom. All Might. Bakugo, stop, you'll kill him. Bakugo. Not if he dodges. He pulled the pin and let loose the giant explosion. Unknown to him, Izuku had nanoformed 2 sound cannons on his arms. Izuku now. He fired, and the frequency of the sound was so powerful it stopped the explosion in its tracks, though of course the force couldn't just disappear. Instead it went up, destroying 2 floors above Izuku and Bakugo. Izuku's lenses allowed him to see through the dust, and see the fake bomb with an unconscious Ida next to it. He walked over and touched it. Then the dust cleared. All Might. The hero team wins. Chapter 9. Izuku entered the classroom at the end of the day to grab his bag. As he did so, he thought back to his battle training match earlier that day. He couldn't take his mind off of one thing, or person, Bakugo. He seemed so familiar, like a memory of him was there, but not. Like it was just visible enough to know it was there, but not enough to make anything out. Shaking it from his mind, Izuku picked up his bag and walked out of the classroom. He began to walk down the hall when he was suddenly pulled into one of the men's bathrooms. He whipped around to find Bakugo was the one who pulled him aside. The explosive boy narrowed his eyes. Bakugo. Do I know you? Izuku. I was gonna ask you the same thing. Bakugo pushed him. Bakugo. Don't play games with me. Do. I know. You. Izuku. I'm not playing, Bakugo. I don't know if we know each other, you're just very familiar to me. Bakugo paused. Bakugo. Like a missing memory? Izuku nodded and Bakugo passed once more before grabbing Izuku's wrist. Bakugo. Come with me. Izuku. Why? Bakugo. Maybe my mom will recognize you. She's better at recognizing faces than I am. Izuku wrenched his arm from Bakugo's grip. Izuku. Alright, just don't drag me there. I can walk on my own. Bakugo scoffed and began walking with Izuku following close behind. This again felt familiar, and by the look Bakugo sent his way, he felt it too. Izuku sent Shota a text as they left UA. Izuku, hey, Uncle Sho. Something's come up so I won't be home till later. Shota, what is it? Izuku, I'm not entirely sure. I'll tell you about it when I get back. He could hear the tired sigh his uncle was definitely producing at the moment. Shota, just don't stay out too late. Izuku put his phone away to find he and Bakugo were at a train station. He followed Bakugo on and sat next to him. After a few minutes of uncomfortable silence, Bakugo spoke up. Bakugo. This is bucking weird. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. You don't say. A frown appeared on his face. Izuku. Though it's only really weird for you. Bakugo glanced over. Bakugo. How so, nerd? Familiarity flooded their brains again. Izuku. Bakugo, do you know about repressed memories? Bakugo. Yeah. The brain locks away memories to protect itself. It usually happens after the person goes through a shit ton of trauma. Izuku. Exactly. I don't want to get into details, but I'm just gonna say, I have a reason for some of my memories being repressed. Hell, the only reason I even know what happened is because of my quirk. But that leaves one question, why are our memories of each other repressed? Bakugo shrugged. Bakugo. We probably saw each other at some terrible car accident or something. Izuku. Except we both know that isn't true, Bakugo. Think about it. We wouldn't be this familiar with each other if it was a passing glance during an accident. We must have at least gone to school together. Bakugo. What makes you say that? Izuku. We both felt that feeling when I was behind you. Elementary kids walk in lines like that all the time. Bakugo stayed silent. Apparently he was tired of talking because he didn't open his mouth again the whole train ride. Once they got off and left the station, Bakugo began to lead Izuku down many streets Izuku found very familiar. Izuku. I know these roads. I used to live near here. Bakugo still said nothing as he eventually led Izuku to a nice, middle-class looking home. He walked up to the door, took out his keys, and opened it. Bakugo, yelling, Old hag, I need you down here. He then politely moved out of the way for Izuku to enter. They took off their shoes and left their bags near the door. Yelling brat. Bakugo. Sir, down, quick. They moved to the living room as someone could be heard rushing down the stairs. Then a woman who looked very similar to Bakugo rushed out of the staircase with an angry expression on her face. She whipped her head around to look at the couch, just for her expression to soften from anger to general annoyance once she saw she had a guest. Oh, hey there. Are you a friend of my brat's? Izuku shrugged. Izuku. That's what I'm here to find out. Her face then grew a confused look on her face before looking to Bakugo. Katsuki, what's going on? Bakugo. Exactly what the bastard said. She walked over and smacked him on the head. We do not call our guests names Katsuki. She then turned to Izuku. Sorry about him. I'm Mitsuki Bakugo. My husband is out shopping right now, so he can't meet you properly. Izuku smiled. Izuku. It's fine. She then sat down in a chair across from them. Mitsuki. Now, can you two explain what's going on here? After half an hour of an explanation not even the two boys were sure of, they finished. Mitsuki. So you two have repressed memories of each other? And seeing and doing certain actions are clearing them up somewhat? Izuku. Yeah, that's the gist of it. Mitsuki. That's weird. But I'll see how I can help. First things first, what's your name? Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. My mother was Inko Midoriya. This seemed to strike something within the woman as Mitsuki got up and rushed over. Mitsuki. Little Izuku? That's you? Izuku. You know me? Mitsuki quickly hugged the boy. Mitsuki. I am so sorry I couldn't find you. Izuku. How do you know me? Mitsuki let go of him. Mitsuki. Right, repressed memories. I guess I should start explaining. It starts back when me and your mother were in high school. Chapter 10. It had been a few days since Class 1A's combat training and they were once more sitting in their seats. The class had also elected the class officers, with Ada becoming the class representative. Toru had pulled over a chair to Izuku's desk as she usually did before class started to talk to him. There was still a couple minutes left before their heroics class started. Toru, quietly. So let me get this straight, you and Bakugo are childhood friends, then some horrific event happened, presumably you know what, and all your memories of each other got locked up. Izuku. Yep, you've got it. Toru. Weird. So what do you think we're doing today? Izuku shrugged. Izuku. I don't know. Hopefully something other than study laws. I'd rather Uncle Shota teach us that than All Might. Toru laughed. Toru. At least then we'd actually know what they're for. The door then opened and Shota walked inside. Izuku. I was kidding. Shota made it to the front podium and spoke up. Shota. Alright. First things first, Hagakure, get to your desk. Toru quickly did as told. Shota. Okay. Now you may be wondering why I'm up here instead of All Might. I'll answer that in a second. Today will be another practical class. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. Shota. Rescue training is your activity this time around. We don't have the facilities for rescue training on our main campus, which is why we're going to an off-campus facility. All Might is already there, so we need to get going. Whether you wear your costumes is up to you. You're not completely used to them yet, so you may want to just wear PE uniforms for today. Change and meet me outside. He left the room and the class did as he said. The class made their way outside to the bus. Ida made his way to the front of the class. Ida. All right, please enter the bus in an orderly fashion. The class boarded the bus and sat down. Izuku sat down in the middle section that faced the other side of the bus. Toru sat next to him as the rest of the class got on. A few minutes into the ride, Tsu spoke up. Tsu. Midoriya, I tend to speak bluntly about what I think. Izuku. Alright Ajiri, what's up? Tsu. Firstly, call me Tsu. Kero. Izuku. Okay. What is it, Tsu? Tsu. Your quirk seems really advanced compared to even newer quirks among the younger children. It's also really powerful. Izuku. Yeah, I don't know why it's like that. It's not like my mom's or dad's quirks either. I guess I just got a really lucky quirk mutation. Kirishima. At least yours is flashy, Midoriya. People will love you. All mine does is make my skin hard and rigid like stone. It's not exactly top hero material. Izuku. Maybe it isn't flashy, but your quirk lets you protect civilians longer and better than any other hero. It's perfect for a pro. Jiru. You want flashy, just look to Hagakure. Nothing's more flashy than actual light. Shota. Shut up, we're here. The bus stopped, and the class got off. They couldn't help but notice the massive facility in front of them. They were so distracted that they didn't see the space suit wearing hero walking up to them. Hello? They looked down and finally saw the hero. My name is 13 and behind us is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or the USJ for short. Please follow me inside. She turned around and Shota lead them inside behind her. Uraraka. I can't believe it's actually 13, I'm a huge fan of hers. They eventually made it inside and the doors closed. Shota looked around before stepping towards 13. Izuku had Nana form a hearing device in his ear to listen in. Shota, quietly. Where is All Might? 13 held up 3 fingers before answering. 13, quietly. He already used all his time doing heroics this morning. Izuku figured the 3 fingers had something to do with the time limit she mentioned. He already knew All Might was weaker from their meeting, but he didn't know his time limit was so short. He had the device unformed as 13 turned to address the class. 13. Alright, class. As you know. That was all Izuku listened to as Nana piped up. Nana. Izuku. Izuku, what is it? Nana, something is wrong. My sensors are picking something up. Izuku, it could be part of the training. Kirishima. Cool, they even have fake villains. Chapter 11. Izuku and the class whipped their heads around to see a large purple portal and an army of thugs pouring from it. Nana, that's what I was picking up. Izuku. Is that part of the training, uncle? Shota. No. Everyone get back. He jumped in front of the class, but Izuku ran up next to him. Shota. Izuku, get back. Izuku. No. We both know All Might isn't coming, and as much as I know you can take crowds, even this is a bit much for you. Shota groaned. Shota. Fine. But only because you're bulletproof. The entire suit quickly covered Izuku, and both he and Shota ran down the stairs. A group of villains ran up to the bottom and pointed what Izuku figured were the parts of their bodies their quirks used, at them. Then nothing happened. Villain 1. What the? Why aren't they shooting out? Villain 2. Shit, it's the pro. Eraserhead, he can shut off your chew. A blue, metallic fist met the second villain's face, making him stumble backwards and fall over. The shock sticks then materialized and Izuku poked the villain with it, shocking him and knocking him out. Villain 3. But my guess is that you can't erase heteromorph mutants like me, leaving you powerless up close. A large villain with rock-like arms charged at Shota. Shota. You're right. He wrapped the man in his capture tool and threw the villain behind him. Shota. Which is why I've taken measures against that. A villain appeared behind him, just to get launched away by a sonic cannon blast. Izuku. Don't forget about me. He blasted another villain away before summoning the sticks again and returning to close-range fighting. After a few more seconds of fighting, Shota blinked, and the purple mist villain he had his eyes on disappeared. Toru watched as Izuku and Shota fought the small army of villains. 13. Hagakure, come on! Toru, sorry. She quickly ran over to the rest of the class who were making their way to the exit. Jairu spoke up. Jairu, you sure Midoriya's gonna be okay? I mean, I know he's strong, but… Toru, he'll be fine. I know it. Besides, he's got me to back him up. Zero, without 13 or Mr. Aizawa seeing you? Good luck. Toru, did you forget what me and Midoriya did our first day? Zero, to be honest, I was sleeping before we left for the quirk tests. Toru sighed and lifted her hand, making light bend around it, turning it invisible. Zero, whoa, cool. The three then bumped into the rest of their classmates who had stopped. They looked up to see why, just to see a mass of purple mist with two angular yellow eyes. Mist. Greetings, students of UA. We are the League of Villains. Could you tell me where All Might is? He is supposed to be here. No one answered. Mist. Oh well. I know what would get his attention. Have fun being tortured and killed. He began to expand the mist, which made 13 raise her hands to use her quirk, but Bakugo and Kirishima charged at the villain. 13 no. They swung at him, but merely hit the mist. 13 yelling move. They did as they were told, and she unleashed her quirk on the villain, slowly destroying him. Mist. 13 quirk black hole. A truly amazing power that you used to save. Unfortunately, your designation of rescue specialist gives away your lack of battlefield awareness. A portal opened up behind 13 and her own quirk bent to tear apart her costume. After a few seconds, she passed out. Mist. Now for you. Tendrils of mist launched out of him and quickly created a dome of purple mist. Toru quickly grabbed Jairu's and Siro's wrists. Jairu. What? Toru, shh. It was then Jairu and Siro noticed that Toru was struggling with something. The dome then disappeared. Ashido. No, he even got Hagakure. Siro. But you're Rigo. Toru quietly led the two away and over to a hiding place. Once they were safe, she dropped whatever concentration she had and began to breathe heavily. Toru. Sorry. It takes a lot to make other people invisible. Jairu. But it looks so easy when it's just you. Toru. That's because making myself invisible comes naturally to me. My body is made to interact with and use light, yours aren't. Siro. What's the plan? Toru. Help where we can. The villain thinks we were teleported and our classmates are separated. If we appear where they aren't expecting, we can win. Jairu. Right. I'll head to the mountain zone first. If someone eyes jamming the signal, they'll probably hide in a rocky area. Siro. I'll stay here and help when I can. Toru. Good. I'll help Midoriya and Mr. Aizawa. Jairu. Are you crazy? Toru shook her head. Toru. Me and Midoriya have trained together for over a year at this point. I can fight with him. Siro. Sounds about right. Let's go. The other two nodded and they went their separate ways. The invasion of the USJ had just begun. Chapter 12. Izuku knocked out yet another villain. While these thugs were weak, there was a lot more than either Izuku or Shota had thought. The end of Izuku's shock staff was plunged into the stomach of another thug, while Shota sent another flying into a group. The two were like a well-oiled machine. Too bad the villains had one very large wrench. One that was about to be thrown into this machine as a villain covered in hands spoke up. Hands, I'm growing tired of this. Nomu, stop Eraserhead and his student. In the blink of an eye, the massive creature now known as Nomu disappeared. The next thing Izuku knew, his face hurt, his helmet had been shattered, and he was flying back towards the stairs. Izuku, what? He hit the ground, bounced, hit the ground again, and rolled for several feet. Before he actually hit the stairs, he was able to dig his fingers into the ground, slowing and eventually stopping himself. Nana, Izuku, are you okay? Izuku. Just MMF. Fine. What hit us? Nana, that Noma thing. It's as fast as Toshi. Izuku. That's why I couldn't see it. We need to get back, Uncle's show won't last long. Nana, right. A new helmet formed itself around Izuku's head and thrusters formed on his feet. They charged for a few seconds before igniting and sending Izuku rocketing back into the fight. Shota directed his quirk to Nomu, hoping to at least slow it down, but it did nothing. The beast punched Shota as the man brought up an arm to guard against the blow. The punch shattered Shota's arm and sent him back. Izuku yelling, "Get away from him!" He brought back his arm and then swung as he approached the Nomu. He managed to hit Nomu's the arm. This high-speed punch did little beside distracting the large beast. Nomu reached over with its other arm to grab Izuku's, but the boy pulled back before it could grab him. Izuku made some distance between he and it, raised both his arms, and how them both shift to become one large sonic cannon. Izuku yelling, "Let's see you deal with sound-compressed sonic distortion." A low hum was heard from his cannon as sound waves began to bounce around within. The hum got louder and louder until it could be heard near the entrance. It was then Izuku fired the cannon, the sound having compressed itself so much the ripples were visible in the air and created a bluish hue. As the beam-like attack hit the Nomu, it was pushed back several meters. It only managed to bring up a single arm to block before the attack hit. Once the attack was over, that arm was gone. The hand was laying on the floor and pieces of the forearm were splattered around the area. Izuku. I heard it. Laughter was then heard. Hands. Oh, you think you've done anything? Noma. The arm that Izuku had destroyed suddenly regenerated in seconds. Izuku. W what? Suddenly, the mist villain reappeared. Hands. Kurogyri? I trust everything has gone well. Kurogyri. Apologies Tamura Shigaraki, but one of the students has managed to escape. Hero reinforcements are inevitable. Shigaraki began to aggressively scratch his neck. Shigaraki. Damn you Kurogyri. If you weren't our warp gate I'd destroy you right now. Then suddenly, he stopped scratching. Shigaraki. Oh well, no use in complaining now. Might as well do as much damage to that bastard's pride before we go. Nomu, kill the brat. Shota yelling no. Once again, Izuku was hit before he could see what happened. This time though, Nomu didn't let go. He felt his chest armor shatter, then his head was grabbed and slammed into the ground, cracking the back of his helmet. As the large hand was removed from his face, Nomu grabbed his leg and threw him into a tree nearby, shattering his back armor and fully breaking the back of his helmet, also causing the front to fall off. He slumped down to the base of the tree as the Nomu approached him. Nana, Izuku, get up, you don't have enough left to fix the suit. He slowly stood up, but it was clear he had multiple broken bones. He wasn't getting out of this. The Nomu stopped as it stood in front of Izuku, towering over him. It began to reach out its hand when suddenly a beam of yellow light appeared and burned off most of the skin on that hand. Toru, yelling, Midoriya. Izuku looked to his friend with wide eyes. Izuku yelling, get out of here, go. She didn't listen as she reinforced her legs using light and zipped over to him. She grabbed him and quickly moved out of the way of the Noma. Toru. Are you okay? Izuku. No. Neither will anyone else as long as that thing is in play. Toru went silent for a moment. Thankfully the Noma was taking longer to regenerate due to the cauterized flesh Toru's attack left it with. Toru. I have an idea. Can you create something to magnify light? Izuku. Maybe. I don't have much nanotech left right now. Toru. Try. We have to do that. Izuku smirked. Izuku. Good thing I'm pretty sure this thing isn't human. The remaining armor on his body began to climb up to his shoulder and form a cylindrical object. It was a tube full of magnifying lenses, which Izuku had to sacrifice plenty of tech to make, leaving him with no protection. Izuku. Here goes. Ready? Toru began to gather as much light as she could into her hands. Toru. When you are. Izuku. 3. He aimed the magnifying tube at the Noma. Toru. 2. She finished charging the light. Both. 1. The Noma finished healing. Both, now yelling. Magnified solar flare. A beam of light, much hotter than what Toru had shot earlier, erupted from the cylinder. A solid yellow beam of light, rivaling even Endeavor's hottest move, tunneled through the Noma's chest, incinerating its heart, killing it. Chapter 13. Izuku and Toru were sat on a curb just outside the USJ as police officers, firefighters, and first responders were running back and forth arresting thugs, putting out smaller fires, and tending to the people that were hurt. A stretcher with Shota on it was wheeled by and the man spoke as he passed. Shota. I'm proud of you too. Keep up the good work. Izuku then watched as he was lifted into the back of an ambulance and taken away. In the distance they could see 13 being taken as well. The other UA heroes were going around, making sure the students were okay and pointing them towards Hound Dog if they needed someone to talk to. Izuku noticed the skeletal form of All Might standing next to Nizu and helping organize a search party for any runaway villains. The sight gave him a thought. Izuku. Hagakure. Toru. Yeah? Izuku. Do you know how old All Might is? Toru was silent in thought for a second before speaking up again. Toru. He's in his 50s, right? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Yeah. He may have all that strength, but he still ages. It won't be long until he either retires, or his age slows him down too much and costs him his life. Toru. Midoriya, what are you saying? Izuku. These villains invaded with a monster created to take him down. They're getting stronger while we're just a few years away from losing our pillar. It took both of us to bring that thing down. 2 of the strongest in our class, and it's only because of one move. She moved closer to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Toru. Midoriya. We will get stronger. We all will. Our class will be ready to fill and the whole All Might will leave. A small smile found its way onto Izuku's face. Izuku. Yeah. I'm sure we will. Thanks, Haga. He then fell sideways and his head landed on her lap. Izuku had fallen asleep. It was obvious that he was exhausted, so she didn't wake him. Izuku awoke in the hospital on a bed. He slowly sat up and looked to his left to see Midnight in civilian clothes. Izuku. Midnight? What's going on? Midnight. Oh good, you're awake. You fell asleep back at the USJ, Midoriya. Izuku. Huh? But why? I don't remember being tired. He tried to get off the bed but immediately winced and lay back down. Midnight. You used up all of your quirk during the fight, and on top of that you have several broken bones. Your body needs to rest so it can recover. As strong as you are, you have limits, and fighting that Noma thing forced you to them. Izuku went quiet. She was right. He went into the fight expecting to be able to keep getting up. He expected 2 full suits worth of nanotech to be able to keep up with a creature specifically designed to take out the strongest hero. He was lucky Toru and his uncle were there to distract the beast. Toru was right, they would get stronger. Izuku gripped the sheets of the bed. Izuku. If villains have stuff like the Nomu, then we need to get stronger. Midnight stood up. Midnight. And stronger you will get. That's why you're in UA, to learn and grow. I need to check on a couple others. She began to walk out of the room, but Izuku spoke up. Izuku. How's Uncle Sho? She stopped at the doorway and turned her head to look at him. Midnight. He's injured heavily. Worse than you. Both his arms are broken and there's some major injuries to his face. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery though. He might have a little trouble seeing from his right eye, but it's too soon to tell. I'll tell you if anything changes. Bye for now, Midoriya. With that said, she waved and walked out of the room. Izuku would stay in the hospital for 2 more days as Recovery Girl visited him to help him heal. After those 2 days he was allowed to go home and recover further, as well as let Recovery Girl focus on Shota. Another day passed and the tired man was allowed home, though he was covered in bandages and both his arms were in casts. A full week after the incident, UA reopened to students. Toru. No way, you're kidding, he wouldn't. Izuku sighed and nodded. Izuku. He would, and he is. Their amphibious classmate Tsu heard them. Tsu. What are you two talking about? Kero. Izuku. My uncle. Tsu. Mr. Aizawa? Is everything okay? Izuku. Yeah. He's just stubborn is all. Tsu. How so? The classroom door then opened, and in walked Shota Aizawa, temporarily known as the Mummy Hero. Izuku. That's how. Shota. Quiet down, your fight isn't finished quite yet. Why? Because the UA Sports Festival is coming up, and you can't afford to miss it. Chapter 14. Izuku and the rest of the class were in their PE uniforms and sitting in their designated waiting room got the sports festival. It had been nearly 3 weeks since the attack on the USJ. Izuku was sitting at a table, idly chatting with Toru. Over the course of the 2 weeks leading up to the festival, they had trained together even more. Izuku then noticed Todoroki walk over to them. Todoroki. Midoriya, Hagakure. It's clear to me that you two are the strongest here. Midoriya fought that thing and you, Hagakure, provided the firepower to defeat it. Now because of those facts, I must defeat the two of you and I will do it using my ice. The two looked at each other, confused for a second. Izuku then stood up. Izuku. Look, I don't know where this is coming from, but today's supposed to be fun for everyone. Yes, it's important for us to stand out, but I would rather have fun this year. You heard what my uncle said, we get 3 chances. Use this one to experiment. Our second and third years are what really count after all. Todoroki. We aren't here to play games and be friends. We're here to win and gain attention of pros. Toru. Really? Could have fooled me. Only using part of your quirk? Doesn't sound like you're taking today too seriously. The dual-haired boy gave her a glare. Todoroki. You don't know what you're talking about. Just as Kirishima was about to intervene, they heard the loudspeakers flip on. Present mic. Ladies and gentlemen, I sure hope you're wafy for this year's sports festival. Ida. That's our cue. Let's move. The class stood from their seats and left the room, eventually appearing from a tunnel into the large stadium they would be competing in. As they stepped into the light, Present Mic's voice popped up once again. Present Mic. I present to you the class that survived a villain attack and came out stronger than ever, Class 1A. The crowds cheered loudly. Other than brief pictures on the news, this was the first time the class had really been seen publicly since the attack. Despite how flashy UA can be, the school knows how to keep the media off the students' backs. The class eventually stopped in front of a raised platform. As they did, the other classes began to emerge, met by both less enthusiastic cheers and bland introductions from Mike. That did not help the glares every other class other than the business course sent 1A's way. Oddly enough, it seemed the business course were all standing off to the side as to not participate. After all the classes had revealed themselves, someone walked onto the metal platform, Midnight. Izuku looked around to see everyone was captivated by her costume except for him. He figured that's what happens when she visits the apartment so much. He turned back to look at her as she began to talk. Midnight. Welcome, I, Midnight, will be the one to direct this year's first-year festival. Before we begin, could the first-year representative, Katsuki Bakugo, come to the stage to give a speech? The blonde boy walked up the steps and snatched the microphone from Midnight's hands before turning around. Bakugo. I'm gonna win. He then gave back the microphone and went back to his place. The crowd went quiet and those who didn't booed him. His speech also garnered even harsher glares from the other classes. Midnight. What an interesting speech. Now, on to the first event. There was a large screen next to her that displayed a wheel of choices. She pressed a button which spun the wheel. After several seconds it stopped and landed on obstacle race. Midnight. An obstacle race. The students will have to complete one full lap around the outside of the stadium while avoiding various obstacles. The rules are simple. Stay on the path, so no going around the obstacles, and don't harm other participants. You can slow their progress, but you cannot target them to hurt them. Now line up at the tunnel. She pointed to a second tunnel that Izuku noted was much too small for every class to go through at once. As soon as every student was in place, the countdown began. One buzzer went off and Izuku's legs were covered. The second went off and half his body was covered. As the third and final buzzer went off, the entire suit was on. He took flight as the other students piled into the narrow space. As he flew above them, he noticed Todoroki had frozen the ground. Todoroki noticed Izuku in the air and scowled. Clearly he had meant to catch him in that. Izuku quickly exited the tunnel along with many of his classmates that had avoided Todoroki's trap. He, Bakugo, and Todoroki were in the lead as they were the ones who could fly. Izuku flew upwards as Bakugo attempted to knock him down. "Nana, look out!" Not having time to react, Izuku was backhanded by a large metal hand. He quickly stabilized his flight and turned to see what exactly hit him just to see several zero-pointers. Izuku. Whoa! Nana, is it time for the sword? Izuku. Definitely. Izuku held out his hand and nanotech appeared from his hand and formed a sword with a 3-3-foot blade that Izuku definitely didn't forget Shota gave him to train with back before the entrance exams. He held it out in front of him and gripped it with two hands. Izuku. Well then. No better time to test it than now. He flew towards the nearest zero-pointer. The robot attempted to swipe at him, but he managed to roll out of the way. Izuku then buried the blade in its arm and continued flying, creating a large cut along the metal plating. Eventually he pulled it out and rocketed towards the head. He wound his arms back and swung the blade as he reached the head, cutting deep into it. He cut all the way through and severed many internal systems as the robot shut down. The sword was then retracted back into the suit. Izuku. Phew. What a start, let's keep going. With that said, he continued the race. Chapter 15. For Izuku, the rest of the obstacle race was easy as the other obstacles were revealed to be a pit and a minefield. Because of the suit, he was able to fly over both obstacles and watch as other students did their best to get across them. Just after he flew over the minefield, he was able to see Bakugo and Todoroki, both of whom got a lot of distance after Izuku took time to deal with the robot. Mike. It seems that Midoriya is catching up with Bakugo and Todoroki. Can he steal first place or will he be left with bronze? The two classmates looked back to see Mike was right. Izuku was on their tail, and he was speeding up. They tried to act, but it was too little too late as the distraction made them slow down enough for Izuku to fly past them, into the entrance tunnel, and past the finish line. He flipped around in the air to slow down enough to land safely. Mike. And Midoriya takes the lead and wins the race while leaving Bakugo and Todoroki in his dust. The suit retracted into the blue object in his back and Izuku sat down to catch his breath. He wasn't used to going that fast. As soon as he did, both Bakugo and Todoroki flew past the finish line as well with Toru right behind them. Mike. Second and third place have been taken by Bakugo and Todoroki. Toru Hagakure has taken fourth. Izuku stood up and turned around as Toru walked up to him. Toru. Geez, you wasted no time. Izuku. Well, after what Todoroki said earlier, I at least want to beat him in the first two events. They both looked at their cold classmate. Toru. Yeah. I feel the same. He shouldn't get to antagonize us just because we're stronger than him when we work together. Izuku. Right. But there's more than just that. You didn't even have to hear him to know what you said made him angry. It's clear he doesn't like using his hot side. They talked for a while longer while the rest of the participants crossed the finish line. After the 42 winners had gathered, Midnight reappeared on the stage, microphone in hand. Midnight. Alright, with the first event completed, let's move straight on to the second. While the first was a competition between all participants, this next event is the opposite, a team event. She spun the wheel again. After a few seconds, it landed on the next event. Midnight. A cavalry battle. Alright, the rules are simple. Each team will consist of 3 to 4 people. Traditionally, the formation would be 1 rider and 2 or 3 horses, but as long as you can make a stable formation, we'll allow it. Each team will have a headband the rider will wear with their point number on it. Stolen bands must be worn and stacked on the neck. The point totals are made by adding the points of each member together starting at 42nd place. The points go up by increments of 5 and to first place. As she finished her sentence, a hologram scoreboard appeared showing the point totals. Izuku immediately looked to his name at the top, his eyes widening as he read the points granted to first place. He could feel the gazes of everyone else fall on him. Midnight. 10 million points. The team with the most points win. If your rider touches the ground, you are disqualified, as well as if you directly attack and knock a team over. Now, make your teams and have fun. You have 10 minutes. She then sat on a chair on the stage and watched the students. Izuku approached Toru. Izuku. Hagakure? I understand of why you don't want to, but I would appreciate it if you would be on my team. She smiled and laughed. Toru. Of course, Midoriya, well, show them what we can do. Izuku smiled and nodded. Izuku. Good. Suddenly, a girl with pink hair appeared in front of them. Hey, Mr. Number 1, let me join your team. Both Izuku and Toru looked at her confused. Izuku. Who are you? The pink-haired girl immediately lunged at Izuku and got in his face. May Hatsum, support course. Me and my babies would help you tremendously. This event is perfect for showing them off. Izuku. You if by babies you mean inventions, sure. Hatsum. Great, now, let me take a look at the baby on your back. She went around Izuku and tried to lift up his shirt to take a look at the Scarab, just for 2 shiny blue insect legs to shoot out and lift her into the air. Hatsum. Oh, automatic defense, fascinating, I have to know more. The legs brought her to in front of Izuku. Izuku. After the festival, and no tampering, got it? Hatsum saluted. Hatsum, yes sir. Izuku sighed and the legs dropped her. Izuku. Now, we just need another perso. Kirishima. Could I join? The 3 team members turned to see their manly peer. Toru. You sure? We'll be the main targets. Kirishima nodded. Kirishima. I can't call myself a hero if I'm not prepared to put a target on my back for my allies. Besides, you could use a shield. Izuku and Toru looked at each other before nodding and turning back to Kirishima. Izuku. Welcome to the team. Now let's win this. The others cheered with him before huddling together to make a plan. The next event would need them all to try their best.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.